So Bob Horn, CRO at Valence. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Just got in town yesterday. I missed the first day, but now the busy day and busy night starts.
It starts kicking off. This is Tuesday morning, right?
Yeah.
So you got a packed day of meetings and
we're
all sorts of stuff.
Wall to wall, and then I think we're most of us are quadruple booked this evening, so having to figure out what's on the agenda.
Tell me about your first ever RSA.
Wow. That's a long time ago. So I'm thinking it was around 2002. Much smaller, little nerdier. There was nothing called a CISO back then. I remember,
Right.
I think I was running part of the identity management business at Sun Microsystems. And that was around the time where we came out with the Liberty Alliance, which really, I think, brought us SAML and some of the standards that are being used today. Back then we were not only selling to IT CIO, but, identity management was selling to marketing, right? Engaging with customers and building out digital businesses. So long time ago. And so I don't even know what number this is at this point.
Yeah, probably. So certainly double digits, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then those are the days when the most senior person might have had a senior manager title or a director title.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
very different days.
Yeah. And if we were able to talk to a CIO, that was amazing.
So, RSA or Black Hat?
RSA. Yeah. Believe it or not, I've only been to one Black Hat, and that was actually last summer. So Black Hat was always, more for the developers and the coders, and a lot of the executives used to stay away from that. And now it's sort of become, in my mind, a little bit about of what RSA used to be.
Well, I remember, way back at RSA, it used to be done in San Jose every other year, right? And then we came up here, and then I myself never went to Black Hat either as well, except for last year. That was my first ever time. It was always seemed to be more the hacker thing than it was actually a corporate event where you might get some business. Yeah. Let's talk about go-to-market then. What do you think pipeline generation is going to look like in a couple of years' time, given all the flux we seem to be in right now about what's working or not working for people?
Yeah, so that's probably a good segue even to fast forwarding to my last RSA, which helped develop some of the changes I've made in my go-to-market and how I think about, developing pipeline and creating a little bit more quality and a little bit more, top down. So last RSA, I actually did something I rarely do, and I went down to the floor. And whereas in 2002, I think I knew everybody there. Last year, I knew very few companies. I didn't know that a lot of people. And so after, that evening, I went out with a few CISO friends, and I just said, I had a lot of empathy for their job of how do you figure out what to buy from whom and what individuals, because it's so crowded these days. And they basically said, look, we kind of look at three vectors, right? We look at trust, we look at value, and who gives us a great experience. So service does matter. And I kind of used what they had given me and came up with this thought around, okay, it's no different than how we buy in our personal lives of, we really look at influencers, and influencers can come in many forms, right? It's customer referrals, it's VC groups, it's channel partners, it's SIs, it's peers, it's all of those things. But the one thing they said is that, our inbox is flooded with emails. My phone is flooded with spam, and I don't answer any of them. So we have to do it completely different. People just don't have the time to go do that. And so I think it's already, going under, radical change. And in fact, this is my first company where, I've always built big SDR teams and done that for our outbound and inbound. And this is my first company where I am not hiring an SDR.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, repurposing those dollars to create my pipeline differently, as you described.
And then, so where's the money going specifically then?
So the money is actually being put into these so-called, influencer networks.
Okay.
And, communities that we're part of. So Cloud Security Alliance, Jason Sinamore as CISO Society, amongst others. We're working directly with CISOs themselves. We're doing events like this. We're spending time with our channel partners. I just hired my head of partnership and alliances. And so we're making investment there. So, if you look at the actual data coming out of SDRs today, most of the numbers show it's about a third as productive as it used to be. And so you've got to make 3 times the investment for the same results. So we've obviously got to think about that differently.
Now, when you move from being highly in control of your SDRs to being slightly less in control of partners and influencers, how do you give yourself the confidence that that's actually going to work and get the results in the short term you're probably, under pressure to deliver?
Yeah. Well, I would also look at it, ask you, right? If the math isn't working like it used to, how does it give you confidence to run the same play over and over?
Yeah, I think the question to ask people is compared to what, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you might not have quite as much control, but it's not like you had the control was working that well before.
Yeah, exactly. So, the whole notion of pipeline gen and SDR teams tends to be a mathematical equation. So when the math breaks, you lose your confidence. So you've got to go do something a little bit different. The irony is literally yesterday, my old SDR leader, I hired her to be our ops. So, it kind of applies some of the concepts that we're going to be introducing around AI and things around scripts and other elements of selling, but we're taking her brain and kind of repurposing that for a more operational focus versus just, running, the old SDR team for, outbound cadences and sequences there.
Now, so you're not investing in SDRs. There is this whole thing right now about what role AI plays in replacing SDRs. And, what I've heard and kind of agree with, frankly, is that if SDRs are mostly email machines, we don't need to employ people these days to be an email machine.
Yeah.
And those that are making cold calls are obviously going to be differentiating themselves from AI. But what would you say the over-under on 5 years is? You think AI is going to replace SDRs inside 5 years or after 5 years?
Well, since I've already kind of replaced it a little bit, so I've probably got
AI, though,
yeah.
So,
and AI is never going to completely. I think there's this myth out there that AI is always going to replace people. It certainly will replace some tasks and some work. I'm of the belief that AI is around the melding of man and machine, or people and machine. Because it still is going to take people to actually run it, manage it, operate it, and even Valence, right? We've got to secure it as well. But yeah, I don't think it'll ever completely replace the SDR function for those that are that SDRs are providing value for their business.
So, Bob, what's one widely held belief out there in sales and marketing right now that you think is complete bullshit?
Yeah, I'll go back to, I think cold outreach is dead. Long live the influencer at this point. You've got to find, ways to, especially in security, right? Unless you're just a PLG led motion or developer led motion. I think you've got to, run what we call like a left to right motion. So somebody somewhere is convincing a executive, let's call it a CISO, to take a look at your solution, or, to talk about the problem that they have. And what I say from there is that person also is going to give their team or their lieutenant what we call permission to evaluate. And so yes, it's a bit top down. But everybody's so inundated with all these projects that they never get to all of them. So unless they get the sense from their executive team that this is a priority and this is important, it's just not worth spending time on it.
Which is tough then if you're introducing innovative technology. They won't be sitting there at the start of the year saying, oh yeah, let's go and spend some stuff that we haven't heard before.
Yeah.
So, for the earlier stage companies who are really doing things different, it must be tough then to get some mind share.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not a lot of awareness, not a lot of brand, emerging category, and people are only doing top 3 projects and must-haves. So you've got to find ways and creative and innovative ways to make sure that people really understand that the problem that you solve is something that's going to be important and, most importantly, valuable to them.
Well, let's talk about Valence then in that light then. If I'm a CISO, and I am walking the floor at RSA, the few that may even do that. And I came up to your booth and said, "So, Bob, what does Valence do? What would you tell me?"
Yeah, I'd say we have a 5-word elevator pitch: find and fix SaaS risks. And, as SaaS is becoming a lot more pervasive these days, and if you look at, a lot of the more recent breaches, you look at the Midnight Blizzard from Microsoft, Cloudflare, among others, they're all SaaS related. And I think there's been this misnomer out there that the SaaS companies actually secure their own products. And security has always existed to go secure other technology products. So why is SaaS any different? And
when I hear you say that, it sounds a little bit CASB-ish to me. Is that fair or unfair?
No, we're in the same ballpark there, right? Where, CASB is much more user to SaaS, where we're actually looking, inside the application with what's really happening. Somebody gave me a great analogy. If you think of like a nightclub, CASB is the bouncer at the door, checking your ID and seeing if you should come in. And we're looking at what's actually happening, inside and all the things that could go wrong and the risk associated with it. But it's a very complementary technology.
Okay. Makes sense. Let's go back to sales philosophy. If I'm a seller, let's say I'm earlier in my career, what's going to help me be more successful? Spending time learning more about the product I'm selling and how it might solve problems, things like that, or spending more time with prospects, understanding prospects and what they care about?
Yes and yes.
If it had to be one,
if you have to be one, you won't be very good at it. But if it does have to be one, you need to understand your customer, right? What salespeople really are educators and problem solvers. And if you don't know the problem that you're trying to solve, how can you educate them?
Yeah, I feel it's interesting, when you see how sellers are trained inside companies, there is this default, especially earlier stage when the product is the thing, right? The product is an innovation. There is this kind of mindset that creeps in where it's, we got a new release coming out. Let's spend time on the new release and let's spend time on this and that. And we kind of seem to deprioritize let's talk about prospects and customers and what they really care about. It must be a challenge to try and change that mindset internally. Yeah.
No, there's definitely a period of time, where I noticed all the reps were really being taught product, right? Sell your capabilities, pitch your capabilities. And effectively, if you think about it, it's just throw something up on the wall and see if it sticks. I'd asked at a CISO dinner recently, I asked a group of CISOs, I said, when's the last time a rep told you that they can't solve your problem? And they all looked around and they're like, it's been a long time. So if you really think about it, right? We don't solve every problem.
Right.
We have specific problems that we solve. So we've got to spend time really diagnosing, understanding, making sure we can, and then having a conversation that talks about why we're best suited to go solve that.
Yeah. It's a tough one because especially when your pipeline as a rep is a little bit light, you're kind of grabbing onto things. I think I heard something there.
Yeah.
Let me just keep going and figure I can make it into something.
Let me shift you 180 so it serves my own purpose. But ultimately, if you just stick to solving a customer problem, you're usually not wrong.
Bob, let's play a little bit of a game here, a little bit of fun. Fizzle or sizzle. So the things I'm going to mention, are they going to sizzle, i.e. keep going and be hot and important going forward? Or are they going to fizzle and really be nothing in a short period of time? You ready to go?
Sure, let's do it.
First one, fizzle or sizzle, this Cybertruck?
I think it's going to be sizzle. It's kind of cool. It's unique. It was pretty easy to find when I walked out the hotel door today. So, but it's kind of cool.
You enjoy it?
Yeah.
It's an interesting ride. I got to tell you.
What's it like to drive? That's kind of.
I don't know if you hear in the mic, but as I turn the wheel, the whole car seems to make a noise. It's kind of interesting. You got to wonder quite how it's all put together. All right, next one, sizzle or fizzle. The Palo Alto played to be the platform company in cybersecurity.
Wow. I'm going to have to go fizzle there. Yes, I always say nobody ever buys a platform, but the platform always and eventually wins. But there's a reason startup communities exist. If you go back to, Clay Christensen, Innovator's Dilemma, big companies cease to, innovate, they acquire and integrate. So they're not there to actually do the innovation, and you need startup communities to go create that. And, there's always room for next gen and best of breed.
Okay. Yeah. I was at McAfee as we tried to put together a platform a few years back, and, it's not easy to do. There's so many moving parts. You need people to commit to certain things that may or may not be obvious or natural for them to do. I admire their intention, but I think having been through the battles a little bit, it's not maybe as easy as I don't know if they think it is or not.
Yeah, look, it's an amazing company. It's a great company. And companies get big and they tend to own the customer. But when it comes to innovation, you tend to rest on your laurels a little bit.
One hot thing right now, fizzle or sizzle, is the idea that we as sellers should be selling to business value, especially as deals in the last couple of years have been scrutinized more and more. Is the idea of sellers being more of a business seller as opposed to a feature benefit seller? Is that fizzle or sizzle?
Oh, that's like sizzle times 10. I mean, that's the only way to sell, is you've got to make sure that there's value along the way. As I mentioned earlier, right? Customers buy because of trust, value, and the experience you give them. And trust also, inherently has value as well. So we really need to spend time and understand what is valuable to the customer as well, not us, right? Even at Valence, right? We look at a number of different risk vectors, and risk areas. And not all of our risk areas the customers really care that much about, right? So our job is to really understand what's valuable to them and create a narrative around it.
And how do you help your sellers think about creating the narrative and thinking much bigger than what we immediately do as a product or as a company?
Yeah. So in fact, I mentioned my former SDR leader that just joined, and she's also going to be, tagged with running our enablement program. So I'm a big believer in just making sure that we really enable our salespeople. And it starts with just learning and storytelling and understanding how customers use our product, because at the heart of it, great salespeople are great storytellers, and the value is going to be embedded in the storytelling that they have.
I love the idea of being storytellers. That's warms my heart when I hear people talk about that. Let me ask you a question. What's a bigger waste of money? This Cybertruck or a meeting suite at the St. Regis?
Well, I'm gonna have to say the Cybertruck, because it's you and I. There aren't any customers in here. They hang out at the meeting room at the St. Regis. So, we're creating value at the meeting room in St. Regis. You should have asked me whether it's getting a big expensive booth on the floor, and then I'd have a different answer.
Well, that was my next one. I was going to say, what's biggest waste of money? A bigger waste of money, is it a Cybertruck or a booth at Black Hat?
So I would say the booth. But it depends on who your target market is and what you're trying to accomplish, right? If you're looking at awareness and you're trying to get to, the developers, the hackers, the coders, get a booth. If you're trying to meet with the executives, then get the suite.
And what's a bigger waste of money, this Cybertruck or traditional sales training?
Well, define traditional.
Old-fashioned guy shows up for a day, delivers a seminar for a day, and then you never see them again.
Yeah, it's probably that. So you've got to find some ways to do, ongoing. Now, it's one thing if it's just inspiration, which is always good, get people pumped up, hit a topic. But yeah, if it's just, come in, swoop in and throw up on people for a day of training and then leave, then that doesn't work.
What's a bigger waste of time? Sitting in this San Francisco traffic that we are right now, or reading the sales advice on LinkedIn?
Oh, it's sitting in traffic. I like some of the sales advice. I mean, you gotta sift through it and follow the right people. But yeah, we all, every day we need something to remind us of what we should be doing, because we get set in our ways a little bit. And I like to hear what other people say.
And then what's a bigger waste of time? Sitting in San Francisco traffic like we are right now, or spending 3 days prepping for a board meeting?
So I've got a great board, so we don't have to do 3 days of prep. We do put in
I'm not going to share this with them. You don't need to say that.
We're thoughtful about it, but yeah, I'm not a 3 day prep for a board meeting guy. We should have most of that information at our fingertips. So I would actually say the 3 day prep.
And then here's a philosophical question. Would you rather hire more people at a lower cost to get more coverage, or would you rather hire few people at higher cost to get quality and focus?
It depends on your model and motion. For me, I would definitely rather have the higher quality, with a bit more focus. But it all depends on your selling motion.
And the most important question today is, will Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce make it through the postseason?
Well, speaking of influencers, I think they will. I think they're gonna.
You have hope for love. Is that
I think it's there.
You're a lover, not a fighter, an optimist.
They seem to have gotten through the hard part, so let's go with it.
Well, I certainly wish them well, and I certainly wish you guys well too as well. I hope RSA 2024 is successful for Valence, and also for the rest of the year. Thanks for joining me, Bob.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I really enjoyed it.